Hey, Ronnie Jr.
But I really feel like the industry is a game of longevity. And if you can stay in it and stay positive and see your vision, then your time will come.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you were able to speak about some of those things because, there is that idea like, oh, these are beautiful women who are doing the pageants, but there is knowing, working two jobs with you, sort of crossing paths rather with you.
Yeah.
I know we know you're beautiful. We also know you're like really intelligent, but it's also what I always from the initial meeting of you was you do have like a lovable energy. Like you laugh, you giggle, and you really make the room a little bit brighter. And so I don't know if that comes from pageants or great childhood being reared in such a good way, but I think it's helped your career. I want to talk about the hosting stuff real quick, but before that, can we do chronologically? I believe you being a Laker girl was something that came after Miss USA, the Miss California, correct?
Well, it's kind of a weird timeline. So the pageants came first, and then I took about a year off in 2011 when I did the Laker Girls. So basically, yeah, I started competing in pageants specifically for Miss California in like 2009, I believe. And I'd obviously grown up being a dancer, and one of my best friends was like, Natasha, I saw this audition for Laker Girls. Like, you should do it. And I was like, no, like, why? Like, I don't know. I've always been a great performer, but like not that great of a dancer, technically speaking. So I was like, I'm not going to make that audition. There's no way. And she was like, just do it. And I just did it. Like, one thing I will say about like past Natasha is I was just like, okay, like I would just throw myself out there. Sometimes I need to like remember a little bit about that about myself. But I auditioned, I made it to the finals, didn't make the team. So then I competed for Miss California that year. But the following year, I trained really hard, ended up making the Laker Girls. So it's a super strenuous schedule, and it's really like a full-time job. So you don't really have, many opportunities to do anything else. My life was basically school and Laker Girls. So I took a year off from competing. And I remember like watching the pageant that year that I wasn't there. I was like, oh, like that's still my dream. Like I still want to do that. So I knew the following year that I needed to compete again, and basically kind of chose the pageant route rather than staying on the
Gotcha.
team.
Do you
Yeah.
have anything that, because they're all sources of discipline, which is what I love to talk about, and I love to see sort of like successes, but I think setbacks are very important when we look at any star, any entertainer. When we look at JLo, we could sort of be in awe of what she's done, but for every
Yeah.
success, there's, 22 failed auditions or whatnot. I'm not saying you failed, but it's
No, yeah.
it's what I like to talk about. My question to you is, looking back at the Laker girl experience, what does that feel like now? Pretty much an iconic position. How do you feel looking back at that amazing experience? But you know,
It's extremely surreal. Like I think even more surreal than competing at Miss USA. Just because like being a Laker girl was such a like iconic pop culture figure for so many years, and I think it still is. Like I think it's like Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders first, and then Laker girls. Like those two teams have cheerleaders, right?
and you're an LA girl too. Like not,
Yeah,
and this is no knock. You're not like somebody who moved to Los Angeles. Like this is you. You
exactly.
grew up, knowing the Staples Center was being built after the Forum. Like this is the big for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and my dad was a huge Lakers fan, and I'm not really into sports, but watching basketball with him and watching specifically the Lakers was something that like we could bond over. So when I made the team, it was awesome for like our relationship because not only was he extremely excited to like see me dance and flourish and, put all those dance lesson money
Yes.
to work because dance lessons are expensive, my parents will tell you. But he was also excited to just, be at the games and experience that. And him and my mom were able to go to games together. So it really like brought our family together. It's kind of a weird feeling though, because while it was extremely exciting and an incredible experience, it was also probably one of the most stressful times of my life. And when I think back about it, it probably was an unhealthy space for me to be in personally. It was a lot of
Mm.
pressure. And it just, a lot of it had to do with the body image that, you know, was expected from a cheerleader. And I look back at like photos, and I obviously was extremely fit. I was dancing all the time, watching what I ate, but yet I still had this, you know, twisted idea of what my body looked like, in part because of what the expectations were set from the organization. And, you know, our coach was extremely strict. So there was a lot of like weird fear tactics that probably were happening, that I think it was the first time I had experienced that in like a work environment. And I don't think that I really was handling it very well. So what a lot of people don't know is I actually auditioned for the Laker Girls for a second year, and I didn't make it. And that was a huge blow to my ego. It was a huge heartbreak, because I felt like, it's like when you
just because you make it once, you don't necessarily come back.
Yeah, you have to audition every year. And so basically I'm leading up to these auditions, I'm stressed out. There's so much pressure for a returning girl to make it again, because essentially if you don't make it again, it's like, oh, well, like, did I lose it? Like, you know, am I not good enough anymore? And I was like 19 years old, like still kind of like getting out, like figuring things out for myself. And yeah, I think that was the first heartbreak that I ever really experienced. So when I didn't make it, like, I feel like I was depressed, like I was sad all the time. I felt like I had placed my self-worth in this position that I had, and then all of a sudden it was gone. And I was like, well, what do I do? Like, who am I? Like, you know, it's just these, like, really the first time in my life that I had addressed those feelings. And so actually when I decided to compete for Miss California again, I really credit that journey between not making the Laker Girls and deciding to put myself out there for the pageant as like a huge turning point for me, because I was able to really tackle those feelings of you know, thinking that I wasn't good enough or not worthy, like figuring out where to place my worth, and just really working through that. And I remember when I finally did compete for California that year, I was just in so much of a better place mentally, physically, and just learned a lot about myself. And that's what I mean, is like picking yourself back up. Like, you have to experience those failures. Like, it's scary. Nobody wants to fail, right? No one wants to feel like they messed up or they dropped the ball, but like, you have to experience that in order to show yourself like what you're made of. So my Laker Girl experience was beautiful. I made so many friends from it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I can't even believe that like happened, because it really was like, being on the court was the best feeling in the world.
Adrenaline, you know? I'm assuming. Lots of adrenaline and excitement. Yeah.
Excitement. Dance is my passion. So it's like, I got to do what like I loved 100% all the time. And be in these crazy situations. But, you know, it was a hard learning experience for me. I'm super thankful for it. And yeah, I don't know.